This is part 2 of the October series, Death Cars. The mythical Bonnie and Clyde went out as they lived, brutally. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow met in January 1930. Bonnie was 19 and unhappily married since 16 to Roy Thornton, who was serving time for robbery. Clyde was 21. Clyde was soon after arrested for burglary and sent to prison. He escaped using a gun Bonnie smuggled to him and was recaptured and was sent back to prison. While there, he cut off 2 of his toes, hoping to be transferred from the harsh conditions of Eastham Prison Farm. Clyde was, ironically, paroled 6 days later in February 1932 and rejoined Bonnie. They, along with their gang, became notorious in the U.S. due to their flamboyant encounters with police and the sensationalization of their exploits by the country's newspapers. Traveling mainly through Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Missouri, these criminals would go on to terrify the nation with their unaliving spree of 13 people. You can actually go on what is known as Bonnie and Clyde's Bloody Adventure Trail. Roadside America has a list of all the sites on their website. And although they were famous for bank robberies, those were not actually their specialty. They were often depicted as Depression-era Robin Hoods, but they actually staged far more robberies of mom-and-pop gas stations and grocery stores than bank heists. Oftentimes, their loot amounted to only $15 or $10 or even $5. This wild string of unaliving and robbery was completed with a stolen 1934 Ford V8, which was faster than most police vehicles at the time. Before dawn, on May 23, 1934, a posse composed of police officers from Texas and Louisiana concealed themselves in bushes along the highway near Sales, Louisiana. In the early daylight, Bonnie and Clyde appeared in an automobile, and when they attempted to drive away, the officers opened fire. The car was riddled in holes. Bonnie and Clyde were unalived instantly. Gawkers quickly descended upon the scene, trying to take souvenirs of the car, clothing, even hair and body parts. So the car was put behind a fence. The bodies of Bonnie and Clyde went on display to prove that they were really gone. Thousands came to see them. Following the ambush, a Louisiana sheriff, who was a member of Hamer's 6-man posse, claimed the infamous Ford V8 sedan. A federal judge, however, ruled that the automobile stolen by Bonnie and Clyde should return to its former owner, Ruth Warren of Topeka, Kansas. Warren leased and eventually sold the car to Charles Stanley, an anti-crime lecturer who toured fairgrounds and with the death car and the mothers of Bonnie and Clyde in tow as sideshow attractions. The car was an instant attraction, touring carnivals, amusement parks, flea markets, and state fairs for 30 years. For a time, it was in the Museum of Antique Autos in Princeton, Massachusetts. Then, in the 1970s, it was a Nevada racetrack where people could sit in it for $1. It continued on to different car museums and also went to various casinos. Complicating matters was the existence of at least a half-dozen fake death cars and the death car from the 1967 Bonnie and Clyde movie. The real death car has been parked at its home in a casino in Primm, Nevada. Both Bonnie and Clyde loved music. Clyde played guitar and saxophone. The saxophone was actually found in the car. Clyde also tried to join the Navy, but was rejected for medical reasons. Bonnie loved the stage and poetry. How different their lives could have been. 2 weeks before her death, Bonnie gave a poem to her mother entitled The Trail's End. This is the last verse. Someday they'll go down together, and they'll bury them side by side. To a few it'll be grief, to the law a relief, but it's death for Bonnie and Clyde.